Asia, the world's largest landmass. Some 10,000 kilometers from the Pacific to the Atlantic Oceans. A formidable distance even in today's world. And yet over that vast distance, human beings have pursued one of history's greatest enterprises, the Silk Road. A tremendously profitable trade route, and so much more. For thousands of years, exotic goods, new technologies, conquering armies, and brilliant ideas traveled along the Silk Road. Silk Road trade helped to build empires and to break them. It fanned the fires of revolution, drove great explorations, and forged powerful bonds between faraway peoples.
The Silk Road made human beings realize that there are other people out there, and it opened the eyes of the East and the West.
This is the story of how Silk Road trade made so much more than money. It's the epic tale of how the Silk Road helped create a world that created us. "2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire seemed unstoppable. Rome had conquered much of Europe and was sending its legions beyond the Eastern Mediterranean to the Middle East, gateway to the riches of Asia. But a journey to the East could become a road of blood. In 53 BCE, near the Mesopotamian town of Kari, the Parthians, an empire blending Persian and Greek cultures, confronted a Roman army. The outcome of the battle seemed beyond doubt. Some 40,000 Romans faced only 10,000 Parthians. And Rome's legions were Europe's finest foot soldiers. There was just one problem. The Parthian army didn't fight on foot.
The Parthians, they were cavalry, they were horse archers. Versatile, rode like the wind. What the Romans did was what the Romans always did. They took a fixed position. They were ordered into a hollow square, defending all sides. But that was nothing to the Parthian horse archers because they could just ride around them, and they did. They galloped around and around and around and around, shooting as they went. Thousands and thousands of arrows loosed into those Romans. What the Romans eventually did was they were ordered to go into testudo. That's that Roman formation where they lock their shields together and put the next layer of shields to make a roof. Testudo is Latin for tortoise. But the Parthians had the answer to this tortoise. They had a hammer to break open its shell.
The Parthian hammer was a cataphract, a Greek word meaning clothed in full armor. Horse and rider wore heavy coats of mail. The cataphract was the ancient world's equivalent of a battle tank. At Carrhae, charging cataphracts broke open the testudo. Exposing the Romans inside to more arrow attacks. Some 30,000 Romans were killed or captured. Parthian losses were minor. It was one of Rome's worst military defeats. But it may have been something else as well. A Roman historian wrote that the Parthians dazzled the Romans with banners made of a beautiful fabric, silk. That may only be a legend. But around the time of Carrhae, Romans began coveting Chinese silk. And China began selling silk to Rome in exchange for fine Roman glassware and gold. Inspiring the name we give Eurasian trade today, the Silk Road. But long before Romans and Parthians fought at Carrhae, trade between the peoples of Eurasia was shaping lives, making new things possible, and changing the world. At Carrhae, the Parthians won with a style of warfare that had evolved centuries earlier and thousands of kilometers away. On the steppes of Central Asia, an ocean of land, where victory in battle and life itself depended on moving very far, very fast. Thousands of years before the Battle of Carrhae, a transportation revolution took place on these vast plains.
There's good evidence for the existence of domesticated horses in what is today Kazakhstan and southern Russia by 3500 BC. And we actually think that probably horses were domesticated and began to be ridden 500 or maybe 1,000 years before that, maybe as early as 4500 BC.
The domestication of the horse was the first step towards cavalry warfare. But the second step would be a long time coming.
The first use of horses in warfare was with chariot warfare. And we have that well-established Tutankhamun's chariot, which many people have seen in museum exhibits. And we know that people were using chariots in warfare starting in the Near East in about 1600, 1700 BC. Horses were not used as organized cavalry until after about 900 BC. Almost 1,000 years after chariot warfare began. And it's always seemed odd to me that cavalry began after chariotry. Chariotry is very difficult to manage. You have to train horses to work together. They have to pull a clumsy vehicle that has two people in it, a driver and a warrior. Training the units to work together. Very difficult thing to do, whereas jumping on the back of a horse is an easy thing. So why did cavalry come after chariotry? I think the real reason that cavalry waited is that you needed to have really 3 innovations. The earliest evidence for the recurved bow is in Shang Dynasty China, probably dated between 1300 and 1100 BC.
Shang emperors communicated with their ancestors by heating animal bones or turtle shells until they cracked, and then interpreting the patterns made by the cracks. One of these so-called oracle bones is carved with a Chinese character for bow, the earliest known image of a recurved bow. And in the tomb of Lady Fu Hao, an imperial consort and renowned military commander, archaeologists found more evidence.
It's a thumb cover for drawing the bowstring, and there's another piece that went in the middle of a recurved bow, a hand grip. The bows themselves are not preserved, so it's a difficult thing to identify the origins of the recurved bow. The different components of it probably came from different places geographically.
Just how far the recurved bow traveled across Eurasia was revealed in 2005 at Yonghai in China's Xinjiang region. Wooden bows rarely survive burial in the ground, but Xinjiang's cold, dry climate preserved one in a 3,000-year-old tomb. Other grave goods and the human remains found in the Yonghai tombs confirmed that the bow was made by the Scythians, a highly sophisticated culture that originated in southern Russia and migrated on horseback across the length and breadth of Eurasia. The true birthplace of the recurved composite bow remains an archaeological mystery. But there is no doubt that 3,000 years ago, anyone who fought on horseback would have found it revolutionary.
A bow is as strong as it is long. It derives its strength from its length. And the recurved bow packs the same length into this very short bow that can be swung over the horse's rear and over the horse's neck. And it was much, much easier to use on horseback. And the recurved bows are technologically quite difficult to make. It took a long time to develop the craft of bow making to that point.
The recurve are all these sinewy bends, reflex and deflex. That gives it inbuilt spring. But that can only be created with composite materials. What we mean by that is it's made of a number of materials. The heart of it is wood, usually beech, and then you have horn from the water buffalo, and then sinew, the tendons of an animal. That, when you bash it, you can tease apart and get these very fine fibers with tremendous tensile strength. That has elasticity and spring, and it stops the bow bursting apart. These are all materials that enhance the power, the spring of the bow.
But only if bow makers could solve a very big problem. How to keep such a powerful bow, made from so many different materials, from breaking up when its own power was pulling it apart.